Children's books. Man, do I love children's books. What do I like about children's books so much? Albert Einstein said something a long time ago that, if you can't explain yourself simply, you don't know your material well enough, right? And so a book like Sometimes You Win, Sometimes You Learn, I've given this to many new moms and dads over the years. It's my favorite John Maxwell book. It's like years of Maxwell wisdom jam-packed into a small children's book with just some really powerful lessons. Another book is the Dog Poop Initiative. Okay, so I'm not going to get too much into detail on this one, but it's all about taking initiative. Halfway Herbert, another one of my favorites. And so then this little fella here, Digger Dan. I remember as a child, okay, driving on a trip somewhere. I'm not sure where we were. All I know is in the back seat, it was me and my grandpa. And my grandpa read me Digger Dan. And I must have been 6 or 7 years old, maybe 5, I don't know, but it was really young. I'm like, Grandpa, read it again. Okay, and he read Digger Dan again. Grandpa, read it again. Probably 50 to 60 times in a row, my grandpa read me this book, and the lessons from this book have stuck. I didn't realize until I became an adult how much this stuff has stuck with me. So I want to read you this book. Again, a little bit of a risky episode reading you a kid's book. I want to give you my youngest one's perspective on this book as well too. And at the end, let's wrap it up with some of the lessons. I won't work, I won't work, I won't work today, hissed Digger Dan. You never want to work first thing in the morning, said Stan the steam shovel man. But there's a job to be done. A school must be built on this very spot. We must dig out a basement. We must dig a whole lot. Look at that frowny face on Digger Dan. Aha, buzzed the big digger. A school for boys and girls. The more he thought about that school, the more he felt like working. I'll dig a deep, wide hole in the earth. I'll dig for all I'm worth, he puffed. And down went his dipper, open wide, gulp. Then it closed, full of earth inside. Ready? Rattled Digger Dan to the big dump truck nearby. Ready? Tootled the big dump truck right back. Give me room, roared Dan to Stan the steam shovel man. I need room to swing my boom. Push and pull, push and pull. Soon big dump truck was full. There you are, take it far, Dan rumbled to the truck. Then for the first time, the big digger saw the children who waved to him as he worked. The steam shovel is big and strong, they said. Digger Dan waved back to all the children with his boom and bucket. Oh, but he was proud. Day by day, the basement hole grew and grew. One day it was all ready for the men to come and pour the concrete for the basement. My work is done, sang Dan. Now I can play, hooray! But just at that moment, who should come along but Farmer Turnipseed? Hi-ho, said Stan the steam shovel man. Good day, said the farmer, and how do you do? I have a big job for your digger to do. And the next morning, there was Digger Dan crawling along out at the farm. And again, look at that frowny face. I won't work, I won't work, I won't work today, he clanked. Oh ho, shouted Stan the steam shovel man. But your job is to grade this land so the farmer can plant a vegetable garden. Aha, thought the big digger. The farmer wants to plant carrots and lettuce and corn for the boys and girls to eat. Aha! The more Dan thought about those vegetables, the more he felt like working. I'll grade and level and smooth this earth. I'll dig and dig for all I'm worth, clattered Dan with a rackety-rackety. Dig and dump, Stan shouted. Dig and dump. Take out every lump and bump. Just watch me, hummed Dan. Down went his dipper, open wide. Gulp! Then it closed, full of rocks inside. Digger Dan is clever, said the children. Digger Dan is smart. There was no stopping Dan after that. Dig, dump, clatter, crash, down, scoop, swish, swoop, whir, chirr, pop, pop, pop. Soon the land was ready for Farmer Turnipseed to plant his vegetables. My work is done, sang Dan. Now I can play, hooray! But just at that moment, who should come along but a small man with a big black mustache. Good day, said the man to Stan. Tomorrow please bring your digger to 4th and Main, shine or rain. And the next morning there was Digger Dan crawling along at 4th and Main, looking like a little house on wheels, yellow and fat, and wearing a smokestack for a hat. Oh, he is sad. He is not pleased. Away, away we roll, off to dig another hole, sang Stan. And you know what Digger Dan's going to say. He says, "But I won't work, I won't work today," hissed Dan. "A digger needs rest." "We cannot rest," said Stan. "But how would you like to dig a basement for an apartment house, a place for boys and girls to live?" "An apartment house," buzzed Dan, "with 1,000 windows to twinkle in the sunlight and a roof garden where the children can play all day?" The more Dan thought about that apartment house, the more he felt like working. "Dump and dig," shouted Stan, pushing his long levers every which way. "Dump and dig. Make a hole that's plenty big." "Look," said the children who had come to watch, "that steam shovel knows just how to bite." "Chug, puff, hiss. I like to do this," Dan hummed. Then one day there were boys and girls going into the school Dan had helped to build. There were children eating fresh vegetables that grew on the farmland he had graded. There were children going up in the elevator of the apartment house Dan had helped to build. Dan saw them all as he rolled away to dig a roadbed for a railroad. Someday all those children would go riding on a big streamliner along shiny new rails. Down, scoop, swish, swoop, went Digger Dan's dipper. Putter, put, open and shut. "I like to work," he said. "It seems like play."
He's like, I won't work, I won't work, I won't work today. And then he just like sits there for a bit, and then the other guy, he says, but it's like for the kids, for the people, and then he wants to do it for them. And then the last one, he's like, work is like play.
So he figured out that work is a good thing, yeah?
Yeah.
And he was wasting his time with negative thinking when he just really needed to find what motivates him, what drives him. And what motivated Digger Dan?
What's that mean?
Like, what inspired Digger Dan? Why did he work hard?
'Cause it was for the people.
For others.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, what lessons did I take away as a youngster, having my grandpa read me this book over and over and over again? I mean, the first lesson, and it stuck with me in elementary school, middle school, high school, is really, how do you look at work? I mean, Digger Dan eventually got to the point of like, well, I look at work like it's play. Work is play. How do you look at it? Is work a 4-letter swear word to you? Or is work something you have the privilege of doing, something you find purpose in doing? But it's really important to connect the dots that work has value, work has purpose, work is a good thing. That's the first lesson. The second lesson, and I didn't hear this language until I got into this business, was, know your why. Nobody ever said that to me as a youngster, but have purpose, know your why. Why, big try. Digger Dan, when he could connect the dots to his purpose, like, oh, I'm doing something to add value to others. He's thinking of the boys and girls that benefit from his hard work. Again, the bigger the why, the more you can identify why, your purpose, the bigger the try, the more effort you're going to put in. And I'll close with this lesson. I've read this before on these HEP huddles, and I'm going to read it again. I've laminated this. This is important to me. The Art of Living, and Digger Dan embodies this, right? So the art of living. The master in the art of living makes little distinction between his work and his play, his labor and his leisure, his mind and his body, his education and his recreation, his love and his religion. He hardly knows which is which. He simply pursues his vision of excellence at whatever he does, leaving others to decide whether he is working or playing. To him, he is always doing both. Anonymous. Digger Dan embodied the art of living.